Hi, and welcome back to my channel. It's me, Lauren, filmmaker extraordinaire, and today we are going to build this Lego camera set while I talk about being in my 20s. If you want to see more content from me, be sure to like the video, comment, whatever your life is like right now, and subscribe. Thanks. This sort of thing. It's a 3-in-1, but we're doing the camera. I was inspired to talk about this because I saw a TikTok where the person was like, you're in your 20s, like what are you doing staying at home? Like you should be going out, you should be going clubbing, you should be doing all this stuff. And then like relatively soon after that, I saw one where it was someone saying, when you want to like save money and stay home, but then you remember that Karl Marx quote, like the more that you don't go out, the more all you gain is like your capital. And I get that if you're not going out and doing stuff, what are you experiencing? It raises a question, what is life supposed to be? What are we supposed to be accomplishing with our lives? And while I think that is valid, like what is life? And I don't know what life is. I totally get why people are saying, oh, you're supposed to be living your life, you're only young once, yada, yada. But I do think that it's sort of, I feel like it's a really privileged take in a lot of different ways to say you should always be going out and doing stuff and experiencing things. One, it's privileged financially because it's expensive to go out and do stuff. I had my friend over recently and obviously I made some content about it. We went to museums, we went out to eat, we went all this stuff. That was a higher spend weekend than my usual weekends, right? Like, oh, when you're going out to eat more and you're going out doing stuff, although it's super fun and great and I had a wonderful time, that obviously adds up. And I don't think it's realistic to say, oh, you can always afford to do this. I also think that people say, oh, about free stuff. And to be fair, like the museum we went to the road, that is a free museum, but the parking was not free. The food we got that day was not free. Like there are some free things, but even like a free place, you usually have to get to. And in LA, at least the public transit is not as good as some other places. So it becomes a little harder to get there. And before you know it, like your, free outing is not free. And of course, that's not to say I don't think anyone should ever do anything. Obviously, I like to do stuff, but it's expensive. And I think to imply that saving your money is useless because all you're doing is building capital but not living life, unfortunately, at least in America, if you don't have kind of money saved up, depending on if like some horrible disaster happens to you, or even like depending on how you define horrible disaster, or even like if you could count it, whether it's like getting laid off, or just like a medical disease, a car crash, like who knows what could happen. It's important to have some money saved up if possible. Not everyone's even able to have any kind of like emergency fund or anything, but if you can, I think it is important to try to have that because there's not a good system for like healthcare in this country. Obviously, there's not a good system for people who are out of work for a long time. And we have a housing crisis. I think it's just really easy for people, especially like sometimes you see people on like TikTok or, you might see people on social media who are a little younger. Not that like I'm old, but like when I was in high school, like, I didn't really get it either because like, why would you? You're in high school. You're hoping to have like a fun time. You're living your best life. Or you're living, your best life to that point in college. The world is your oyster. And not that the world's not your oyster when you get older, but like it's different. And I just think it's just so easy to say, well, you should be doing this and this because like you're only young once. I think that's also a bad mentality because I feel like it goes along with ageism in, society. Because yes, you're like only your age once, like your current age once, but you're always going to be getting older, and to imply that like if you don't do stuff you wanted to do when you're young and can do it, like you can never do it or you've missed your chance, like that's not making anyone happier. And it just goes along with the idea that you're valuable when you're younger and these are like the best years of your life. And although you may have some benefits when you're younger that you may not have when you're older for various health reasons or whatever, you can still have a really cool, awesome, and full life, I believe, when you are older. I wouldn't think of my parents as like super old, but they're obviously older than me. And like they're traveling and doing stuff and having a good time. It's not like they, turned like 50 and now all they can do is sit on their couch all day. Like that's not how getting older works. I just don't like that mentality that you have to do these things. going back to the privilege take, I think it's annoying because it also assumes that everyone, not even like financially, but kind of like mentally and emotionally wants to be doing that, especially if you're thinking about like going out all the time and being in like public crowded spaces. Because whether or not, maybe you have like a mental health condition and maybe crowds really stress you out for whatever reason, or you get like social anxiety. I have anxiety, not necessarily social anxiety, but I get anxiety about stuff. And it's like, depending on what it is, it's sort of like paralyzing and I just sort of like panicking. And I can't imagine if I had that anxiety with crowds or going out in places I'm not familiar with. I mean, I wouldn't want to go out. Like when I'm having kind of a panic about like my future or my health or whatever it is, I just want to like curl up in bed. Like I'm sinking into this like spiral pit of everything's going to fall apart in my life. And I'm at least usually in a position where I can like sort of be alone in that feeling versus somewhere I'm not that familiar with, all of a sudden like onslaught with something. And I think for people to just be like, oh, well, you're just like a homebody, that's so lame. You don't know why they're a homebody. And maybe they like it. Like it's Friday night as I'm filming this. I'm more than happy to film this video, build this Lego, and chat like to you guys, message my friends, whatever. It's been a long work week. And almost every one of my work weeks is a long work week, unfortunately, just like the industry. But that doesn't like discount wanting to have like a calmer time. And like maybe people think that I'm lame for that, but like I don't think I'm lame for that. And like my actual friends don't think that I'm lame for that. And honestly, if I lived my life based off how the internet thought about me, I don't think I'd be very happy. And I don't think most people who base their lives off the internet are very happy, mostly because the internet's like always changing what's popular. It's always changing what's trendy, what people like, what's impressive. So I just feel like you can never win that way. And you might as well win by doing something that makes you happy. Now, I will say, if you're staying home, say your roommate doesn't like going out, or your best friend doesn't like going out, your partner doesn't like going out or whatever, and you wish you were going out, but you don't, for those people, that's when I would agree that maybe that's not the best situation, because you may end up sort of regretting not going out more. And obviously I think it's a nice compromise. Do stuff with, people you care about in different ways. But if you feel better and you feel more comfortable doing whatever it is you're doing, and you feel like you're feeling happy and feeling rested and emotionally secure, I see no problem at all with staying in. Especially because staying in doesn't necessarily mean you're shut off from the rest of the world. Like just because I'm not going out on the town all the time doesn't mean I don't interact with my friends, especially my friends who are not in Los Angeles, or my family who's not in California, and I like to video chat them or call them. I can call them or video chat wherever, but it's way easier to do that in my apartment. And then, sometimes my friends and I I'll be cleaning here and she'll be cleaning where she lives, and we're kind of like doing it together and it's fun. Or when I have my FaceTime dates with my fiance, obviously it's nicer and we can have more like intimate conversations or just more personal conversations because I'm not in public, and I don't feel worried someone's hearing me say sweet romantic stuff and I feel awkward. I can just be chilling in my own place. So I just think people don't always think about the different reasons why people may or may not be going outside. Again, I know this is a little all over the place. To go back to also kind of free spaces, there's also just less free spaces. I think especially for younger people, because I just keep hearing about, kids taking over. People are upset that children are taking over Sephora's or Ulta's or Target. I'm not sure if it's Target too, but they're upset about these things. And then that basically goes along with how more and more stores don't want minors or younger people. I think malls now are requiring certain age groups to have chaperones, or they're not allowed in the mall. And not that, the mall's the only place someone can go to hang out. But if you want to encourage people to be going out and doing stuff, the way to do that is not to, when they're, middle schoolers and high schoolers be like, you can't hang out with your friends here. And more parks, people aren't comfortable. People are so quick to be like, oh, something's like suspicious or shady. And it's like, you just see less people outside and people are like, well, where are the kids? It's like, well, you kind of chase the kids away. So if when you're in middle school and high school, like the most time you socialize with your friends is either at your own houses or like online, why would that suddenly change when you get, when they're older and they have more money in a car? Like if they associate like hanging out with their friends by going on Discord and playing, like having some online video games or whatever, like why would that change? And I don't think people necessarily thought ahead enough for that when they started being like, I don't want kids here, because now they're upset. And then they're upset that like, oh, young people aren't spending the kind of money that we want. And I'm like, well, where are they supposed to spend the money? And with what money? Because you don't pay people that well. Minimum wage federally is still $7.25. And with everything getting more expensive, even places that do pay like more than the federal minimum wage, things are expensive. Like Costco might be keeping their food court prices pretty much like the same, but other places aren't. So the same like minimum wage is getting less stuff. So people don't have as much disposable income. And then people are wondering why they don't go out and use the money they don't have. It's just really annoying. Another thing I think is that it feels like everyone's sort of forgotten that although people seem to think, oh, the pandemic's like totally over, it's not exactly like totally over. And some people who are immunocompromised or who have other whatever concern, like extra concerns, maybe they're not immunocompromised, but maybe someone who lives with them is, or a close family friend, whoever, like they have to be more careful because overall people are not more careful. Like I, we first admit I don't necessarily wear a mask like on the daily, but I will wear a mask if when I'm like traveling in an airport or, on a more busy train or something. I'm very lucky that at work we have like air purifiers everywhere, so I don't really need to worry about it at the office. But if someone sort of near me is like, I have a bit of a cold, you can bet that like they're going to mask up and I'm going to mask because that's just like the culture at my office, which I'm really grateful for. But like some people, I'd say overall most people, even if they're feeling a little sick, like they're not even going to do that, or they're not going to stay home, even though they could probably work remotely. And I think it's a legitimate concern to be worried about, and for people to just sort of like laugh it off and tell people they're being unreasonable is not considerate. It implies that like their worries are not important when they're worried about their health and safety and the health and safety of their loved ones. And ultimately it impacts like community health and safety. I think everyone should care about that. So it's my 2 cents there. Making slow progress. We just, I think, had this idea again of what people should be doing. And it's like, who decided what people should be doing? Like, because you did that when you were 24, you think me at 24, I should be doing this as well? Like, we're different people. I mean, I get, some people like ask me why I don't really drink very much. And I mean, for one reason, like, I just don't see like, I don't really have a desire to drink a lot. And for another, like, even if I didn't have that, that should be like enough, honestly. But sometimes it's not. People are like, oh, like, but it's fun, yada, yada. And then I literally have to tell them, look, like I'm on a bunch of different psychiatric medications. And although my psychiatrist has cleared me to be able to have like a drink or maybe 2 drinks, like rarely like over the course of an evening, that's like it. And I shouldn't be doing that a lot because of the meds I'm on. And I know like some people say, oh, you shouldn't have any alcohol at all on those meds. But I think that's probably like best. I don't think it's necessarily realistic overall. But I like asked my doctor, I was like, seriously, like how much is it safe for me to have? I'm not a huge drinker anyways. Like I didn't even drink until I turned 21 because I was like stressed and I just didn't see a need to. Because I was never really into like the drinking scene. So it's not like I feel like I'm now missing out now that I don't drink a lot still. And sometimes like some of my friends, like they just want to go out to a bar or something. And there's only so many times that I can go out within the same period of time where I'm like the only one who's not really drinking. Not because I want to impel other people they shouldn't drink, but I just feel like, what am I doing here? Like everyone else is sort of like, woo, and they're having a great time. And I would never want them to not have a great time. But I just feel like this is not the vibe all the time for me. And that's fine. Like, that's cool. Like, we'll do something else some other time. It's not the end of the world. But like for some people, apparently on the internet, like it is the end of the world that people aren't going out. And I think they just want to blame youth for why people aren't spending as much money necessarily or whatever. But oh no, we're good. I do think there's this idea that maybe younger generation people are like, oh, we're sort of selfish or something because we are like prioritizing ourselves versus like the community and the community economy. And I do think that it would be better, like, obviously, if people were able to support their local communities. But I think it's really hard to do that because in a lot of places, like the local coffee shop is gone and there's just like a Starbucks. There's a lot of chain stores everywhere. And then even places that do have like local stuff, it's usually more expensive and not everyone could afford that. As I was like saying before, things are expensive. Life is getting increasingly expensive and wages are not going along with that. So people are blaming, these individuals for not shopping on a broader scale. And it's like, well, you're the one who's been all encouraging Amazon to take over. And when you buy stuff, like when the general you, like when you're critiquing someone for like not buying enough or supporting local, like, do you do that all the time? Or is your first stop like Amazon to see what you can get, or Target? Or are you like actually going into your community? Because, and I'm not saying this to be like attacking, like I just feel like overall you're probably not, because it's a lot more work. And when people are already like struggling to get by, that's more stuff to do. I don't think struggling to get by necessarily always just also means struggling to get by financially, because I am very lucky. Like I know that I'm not currently really struggling to get by financially, but I do sometimes struggle to get by like in life, in the sense that currently I live by myself and overall like no big deal, no problem. But I have to do like then everything in my apartment myself, right? Like I have to clean the bathroom. I have to clean everything. I have to do the dishes. I have to do the laundry. I have to do all the things. I have to go grocery shopping. And that's a lot of stuff and it's tiring. And then sometimes like on the weekends, like that's what I actually have to do. Like I may want to go out and do something fun, but I actually have to take care of where I live, because otherwise things will just like rapidly decline. And every now and then, like I will be, I'm going to choose to have fun this weekend or something and not do all this stuff. And then the week following usually is terrible because I have no clean socks. Like I didn't do laundry and I immediately face the repercussions for not doing laundry. And again, like that's not that big a deal. But I think overall that kind of thing can add up. I think it's really privileged to just assume that you'll always have time to do everything you need to do, or depending on where you're at in your life, like someone else is doing that for you. When I was like in high school and stuff, I was, achieved, high academic achiever. And even more than that, I was in a million clubs, like all this stuff. And how I was able to do that? Because my mom and my dad like did all the other stuff. Mostly my mom, like as far as grocery shopping and stuff goes, because my dad worked more than she did. Thank you, parents, for that. Because otherwise, like I would not have had the time to do this. And I just think people think, oh, like it's so easy. It's like, well, it's easy if you're given the recipe for success. I'm not trying to be a buzzkill. I just think that it's a little unrealistic to assume that everyone can just do all this stuff. And if they're not, going out on the town, like it's because they're a loser. When it's like probably because life is hard and they're busy trying to live. I feel like that's really discounted. And I think that's not fair. I think it's honestly impressive sometimes that, I don't know, for me, I'm always like, oh my God, yes, I did laundry and I actually put it away the same day that I did it, because that is more rare for me to put away the same day. I don't think some people who haven't had to do all that stuff, and I know I even have it like so much easier than a lot of people, realize that that could be a real win. Or like yesterday, I had to get gas for the car. I was just like, oh, I have to go get gas. Or I feel like I'm always going to the pharmacy. And they're just these things, they just keep adding up and they just don't stop. And like you'll do the dishes and then like later in the week, or if not later in the week, the next week at the very latest, you have to do them again. Like you always have to do this stuff again. You will never be done doing laundry. You will never be done cleaning. And that's so tiring. Plus, if you work like irregular hours or sort of weirder hours or whatever, like then what people conventionally think of as a 9 to 5, it's harder to go out and do stuff, or it's harder to do stuff with your friends potentially because they don't have the same work schedule as you. And then what? Additionally, I think there's also a safety factor, because I know as a woman that I just don't feel comfortable going certain places by myself. And I have talked to some of my male friends and they do not feel the same way, depending on where it is. They're like, oh, I have no problem going out by myself. It's like, great, I wish I had that too. But the fact is, it's just not the case. And I'm not going to put myself in a precarious situation just so I might be able to have like a fun night when like my safety is more important to me. So if I don't have someone I can necessarily go out with, I like probably, depending on like what my plan would be, even if it's during the day, like I'm not going to go because it's risky. And I think, you know, when I was in college and I was in Philadelphia, I did lots more stuff by myself because a lot of things were on campus. So even if I didn't really know anyone that was going, it didn't matter because I wasn't going anywhere that far, or I was taking like one subway right to City Hall. And then I would like stay in that area and then like take the same subway back. And I wasn't like going that far. But in LA, I basically could drive almost everywhere, unless I want to walk to the library, you know, which I like the library, but like can't like go out on the town at the library that often because it's a library. It's supposed to be quiet. So it's a lot bigger of a deal to get places. And then I have to find somewhere safe to park, depending on where I want to go. And I also have to make sure it'll be safe, like a safe spot when I'm leaving. Like if I'm going somewhere and I get there at 4, but I'm not leaving until 8, it's probably gonna be dark when I'm walking back to the car. Is it gonna be safe for me then? And I think it's just a lot more complicated of an issue than just, oh, people are lazy and they just don't want to go outside and do stuff. It's like, no, that's not what's happening here. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have to choose between having a safe, fully habitable place to live and being able to go out and socialize and enjoy the company of other people. But I think realistically, that's just not the case for most people, especially younger people who typically have less assets and are not as financially stable as other older people, just because they've had more time to work or build financial capital for whatever reason. And that's fine. You know, we're all doing what we can do, but I just think we should do what we can do nicer, like be nicer to other people about it. You know, if you want to go out and your friend can't afford it, don't make them feel like they're not doing their life right because they're trying to be like a saver or do something that you wouldn't do. Because just because you wouldn't do it doesn't mean they shouldn't do it. It's not rocket science to be like a nice, considerate person. Again, I don't want to imply that people shouldn't go out and shouldn't care about their lives like outside of, you know, their home and their internet friends and online circle. But to imply that you're living your life wrong if you're not constantly going out is my main thing that really annoys me, because there's no one correct way to be alive. And if you're implying that there is only one correct way to be alive, I honestly think that's like a you problem. That's a you insecurity problem that you need to figure out, because then you're probably actually trying to live your life a certain way so that people approve of what you're doing instead of actually living your life in a way that you like and that you're happy with. Because ultimately, the only person who is going to be, who should be care about how happy you are in your life, is you. And if you're going to let other people control how you feel about your own life, then I am sorry for you, but you need to figure that out on your, by yourself. That's not my problem. That's not anybody else's problem on the internet to fix your life, make you feel like you're living your life correctly. Because as I said, there's no one way to be alive. I mean, I do think we should all strive to be good people, but if you want to be, a recluse, be a recluse. Obviously, I don't think society necessarily would thrive if everyone did that. But at the same time, is society thriving now? Are there enough resources now? Not really. Never really thought. I just don't think it's worth you being miserable, putting yourself in situations you're not happy in just to make other people feel better about their lives or to try to make yourself feel like you're living life correctly if you're not happy. Because if you're not happy, you're not living life, correctly. And that's not to say you could be doing everything to live your life, how you want to be, and you're still not happy for whatever reason, health, financial, whatever it is. You could do everything that anyone ever tells you to do, every self-help book ever, and you still might not be living your best life because that's sort of the myth. It's absolutely possible to, live a fulfilling life, I believe. But I think it's not possible to be living your best life every day. Watch the Barbie movie. You'll understand. Because that's just not how life goes. And that's okay. It's okay to not have your best day every day. And I think if you did have, a best life every day of your life, then, you have found the secret that no one else knows. So let me know, actually, and I'll guard it, I promise. But it's totally normal to not have amazing days all the time. It's totally normal to feel like you're not, living your life up to your potential. But the truth is, your potential is always going to be limitless. So there's almost no way you could live up to your potential because you could do anything you wanted, but you can't do everything you want because you can make choices that will impact your future choices. So that's not to say that you every choice you can't turn around from or come up with a new plan, but you are going to eventually have sort of less options because of past choices. But that doesn't mean that, the world has ended by any means. It just means you have actually new opportunities that are coming from your old choice. I'm feeling kind of profound, but also I don't have anything really else to say on the topic. So I'm just going to now finish this Lego because I realized I've been talking for 40 minutes and I know I'm going to cut it down because there was a lot of rambling and confusion, but I will show you the finished product. But thanks if you listened at all to this. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.